For 10 years, I've been fooling myself. No, 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 no. This was inevitable. And now he's taunting me. What is it he likes to say? Is today the day we start the end all over again? Yes, that day has come. Today on the Comic Book Report, A Vicious Circle by Mattson Tomlin, with art from Bermejo, from Boom Studios. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone and welcome in. My name is Dominic and once again you are tuned in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm excited to say we are back in the world of Boom Studios, courtesy of this review copy. Huge thank you to those at Boom for sending it my way. Now this is A Vicious Circle, and right from the jump I will say I was drawn to this title because I knew it had art from Bermejo. After seeing a lot of his covers, his work on Batman Noel, and a couple other properties, he is an artist I definitely keep an ear out for, and this collection seemed too good to pass up. And now that I've completed it, wow, was this a real treat. Before we jump in, I do want to as well shout out the channel sponsor, Panelbound Comics. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I would highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video description, and if you see anything site-wide you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's probably the best way you can continue to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Mattson Tomlin, with art by Bermejo. The issues in this volume were published by Boom Studios beginning in 2022. As far as what this volume collects, it includes A Vicious Circle, issues 1 through 3. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with that nice boxy format. It does have glossy print paper stock, what appears to be a sewn or perhaps glued binding, and a total of 176 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. I'd also like to issue a mature content warning. This collection has a lot of instances of violence, gore, and also some sexuality nudity. While I have tried to cut around the nudity and sexuality, I just wanted to advise. Okay, and with that, here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's hardcover edition. I love this cover. We have our two primary characters in front and center, along with a couple other warriors and things displaced from time. We do have some prehistoric dinosaurs, some future, almost robotic soldiers, and everything in between. You can definitely tell right from the cover that this is a time-spanning adventure, and boy is it. I really couldn't enjoy this cover more. I think it is the perfect cover for a collection like this. As we transition to the spine, we do have a pretty simple spine here. We have the Boom Studios logo up top. We do have a vicious circle with that stylized font, along with the creators along the bottom. I really like this though. It's just a stark black and white. It doesn't overstay its welcome at all. It looks good on a bookcase, really crisp, and overall, I really do like this spine design. As we transition to the back cover of today's collection, we have a blurb about the book, some other reviews or accolades, followed by the Boom Studio logo, pricing information, age rating, or things like that. All pretty straightforward, and I should note that this does not have a slipcase or dust jacket. It is just this hardback book itself. You might have noticed that already, but it was worth mentioning in the review. Okay, and now for all you prospective collectors out there, I did want to take a good look at this book's binding. So as you can see, I think it's sewn. It's a little hard for me to tell, but I think it is a sewn-bound book. My collection even has a bit of an eye. I think the pages lay down pretty well, very little to no gutter loss, and this binding feels very, very solid, at least in my experience. You'll get to see too as I flip through just how well it lays out, but overall I was really happy with it. And now, without further ado, because this is an oversized and unique formatted book, I thought I'd show it next to a standard size trade paperback. For those that don't know, the standard size paperback is the trim size or height of a single issue comic, so you can see how A Vicious Circle stacks up next to something of that size. To compare, of course, I have this trade paperback of Man's Best, another series from Boom Studios that I have read and reviewed. Really like that series as well. It was like Homeward Bound in space, I think someone said, and it's a pretty apt description. But yeah, you can see here that A Vicious Circle is larger in just about every dimension and respect. It also has that kind of boxy page format, which I see with a lot of these like DC Black Label books and some others. I really like this, and I think it's a great choice for books that really showcase the art, which you definitely have here from Bermejo. Okay, and now that we've finished up the build of the book and the exteriors and things of that nature, let's go ahead and begin our dive into today's work. Okay, and opening up today's collection, we have some black end pages, followed by a title page noting A Vicious Circle, followed by a 2-page spread page that has the title again, the creator, some publication information, and even kind of a blueprint diagram of this actual machine that plays a central plot device in the work itself. After that, we do have a chapter break of sorts showing us book 1, and then we jump right into that first issue. So as I mentioned at the top, this is a 3-issue, essentially graphic novel series. They released 3 issues that are overlong as far as how many pages are in each issue. Really like this kind of format. Like I said, I've seen a lot of things like this with DC Black Label and things like that. So these are oversized issues in both, dimensions, but also in page count. And yeah, we start this story in a kind of black and white, almost like pencil or charcoal sketched scene. We basically have an African-American man back in kind of the civil rights era, and he lives in a humble home with his wife and maybe 10-year-old son, give or take. And at the very beginning, you have this suggestion that there is something in the basement, and we find out before too long that it's a man in a mask and chained up in their basement, presumably being held captive, debatably tormented by our central character. Throughout these early pages, we get to know a little bit about our primary character, his family, the time he finds himself living in, and of course all of these hidden secrets in the basement. However, before too long, unfortunately, this man comes home to find his wife brutally beaten to the point of death and his son murdered in the basement with the man he had chained up under there released. And he then follows his wife to the hospital. She's in a hospital bed, and he knows the time has come. And before too long, he is transported into the far-flung future. Now, I again want to set up a little bit of context for this story. This, again, is a standalone work, but what we have here is essentially a kind of time travel philosophical thriller, is what I would say. We follow this character and the man that was in the basement across all sorts of time periods, from this beginning point, at kind of the beginning of the civil rights movement, to the future, all the way back to the prehistoric era, and just about everything in between. Incredibly, across this work, everything's really illustrated by Lee Bermejo, but we get to see a lot of diversity in his art style. It's a tremendous breadth of work here from him, and I just couldn't believe how rich and diverse the art style was throughout. In fact, each time period has its own distinct art style, from different levels of coloring. It almost appears the medium he's working with shifts as well, but it, again, has a very unique visual style in each of these different periods. At any rate, we follow our character into the future, and before too long, across these 3 issues, we start to understand the backstory, where basically, at some time in our future, these 2 people are both trying to make their way to this machine. Our primary character believes that if you turn it on, it essentially ends the world as we know it, and the adversary, the man that was locked in the basement, essentially believes that he has to turn it on to usher in what's next for humanity, and it might be kind of a saving grace kind of thing. We find out that at some point in time, they both reached this machine at the same time, and I believe once they turned it on, they were both thrown through time and inexplicably and inextricably linked together. What does this mean? It basically means that wherever one goes, the other goes, and if any of them is around killing or kills someone, they get shot through time again, to kind of points unknown. We believe that this dance has happened for a long time, and we came into the story sort of in media res, right in the middle middle of a story where basically for the last, I think, 10 years or something, they said they were in this civil rights era America, but after this man killed part of his family, they're thrown into the future, and then before too long, they're thrown into this past. Anyway, they go back and forth, and we see this other man have a family of his own. We see him, our primary character, trying to get his family back, try to return to this time. We see them lost, like I said, in kind of a dinosaur sort of era, kind of a Roman Empire era. Just, again, we go back and forth, and I just thought this was really impressive. And you get this feeling that these guys have just done this for so long, and they in some ways feel a kind of inevitability. Ultimately, through big portions of this book, they do sort of have a uneasy truce to try to work together to see if they can get to the bottom of what is happening, to try to save the world, and see if they can break their tie to one another. Things go sideways, and ultimately the war continues, and that's kind of how this story ends, as they sort of leave it to this kind of cycle of violence is just built into humanity, and there's nothing they can do to stop it or change it or alter it, and they ultimately succumb to being part of this vicious circle. Hey, you see what I did there with the title. But anyway, there is something very circular about this kind of narrative. It's deeply philosophical, and I found it to be really captivating, first visually and just in the premise and the execution thereof. Overall, I've been a fan of Bermejo's work since I saw him grace different covers, and of course his work in Batman Noel, which was my first featured work with his art, and so that definitely made this a collection to pursue. For me, it's a little bit unfortunate though. There are some explicit scenes here. The violence, which didn't disturb me too much, but the sexuality, nudity, which I try to limit or avoid in comics where possible. There are a couple scenes, flashbacks with the character's wife, or where they flash into sequences of people in various state of undress. So that is something to be noted. I would suggest this for mature readers only, but again, reader discretion advised. Outside of that, though, this was really a brilliant work. I thought the writing was pretty top-notch, and even though there is a bit of, I'm not going to say confusion, there is a bit of off-balance in how we shift through all these different times and kind of slowly piece together the nature of these two, their relationship, how they got this way, what they're trying to do. I think overall it was still pretty coherent, and honestly, I would love to see this story adapted into maybe a limited television event or a movie even. I think could be pretty impressive. I would love to see this in the hands of someone like Christopher Nolan, for example. I do think it's a really psychologically and science fiction rich premise, and yeah, the art style is just so beautiful. There's something very cinematic about this as well, and Bermejo's pencils and work here has never looked sharper to me. After our primary story, we do have some extras at the back, which I was happy to see. It is effectively a cover art gallery where we have the covers for these issues, along with a variant cover art gallery. We get to see a lot of these other illustrators take their shot at it as well, which I like to see. We also have a feature that's essentially script to page. We get to see some kind of earlier production pencil work or inked work here as well, which I liked. And at the very, very back of the book, we actually have a little bit about the creators as well. Overall, I thought that this was a very good graphic novel, a tad too explicit for my taste, but the art was so gorgeous. It's frankly hard to stop talking about how good I thought the art was. Now, as we finish up here, I do want to say, if you have any recommendations from this writer, Mattson Tomlin, or the illustrator Lee Bermejo, I would love to hear about that in the comments section. Again, I was familiar with Bermejo's work, but this is my first work I've encountered that I'm aware of from Tomlin, and I thought his writing was really sharp throughout as well, so I'd love to get some recommendations from him or other Bermejo work. Again, Bermejo is a creator I really like to follow just because I think his art style is really gorgeous. There is kind of a photorealism to it, and I just think seeing it across a bunch of different mediums in this just really, really eye-catching. At any rate, that was my look at A Vicious Circle from Boom Studios, and now the grade. For a veritable visual feast, the Comic Book Report is happy to give A Vicious Circle by Mattson Tomlin and Lee Bermejo from Boom Studios an A-. While I do recommend this for mature readers only, I have to say the art is stunning, and having a really deep philosophical science fiction based concept, this is just really, really fun for fans of time travel stories, the sci-fi genre in general, or just anyone who loves a great visual style. This immediately goes down in history for me as one of the better time travel narratives I've seen within the medium, and I think it's one that a lot of people are missing out on. At any rate, like I said earlier, these are just a couple of my thoughts on A Vicious Circle, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments. Have you read this work? Do you plan to? What do you think about this review? Let me know all of that and more, again, in that comments section. A huge thank you to Boom Studios for sending this over for review, and for all of you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another one of my videos on your way out. Thanks, bye.